I was home alone one quiet Sunday afternoon. My parents had gone out to visit some friends, and I had the house all to myself. It was early spring, and the sun was just starting to set outside, casting long shadows through the living room windows. Was sitting on the couch watching TV, but I kept feeling like someone was watching me. I brushed it off as nerves. I live in a quiet neighborhood, and nothing really ever happens here. Then, I heard a soft tap on the window behind me. I turned around slowly, expecting maybe a bird or a branch moving in the wind. But the porch was empty. The windows were clean and no one was there. I went back to the TV, trying to ignore the feeling in my chest tightening like a knot. Suddenly, the tapping came again, louder this time, like someone was lightly knocking with their fingers. I froze, my eyes fixed on the window. Then I saw a face. A man's face, pale, with dark eyes staring right at me. I couldn't see much, else because it was getting dark outside, but he was close, just outside the glass. I didn't know what to do. My heart was pounding so loud I thought the whole house would hear it. I grabbed my phone and slowly dialed 911, but my hands were shaking, and I dropped the phone. I picked it up, but the screen was cracked from the fall, and it wouldn't work. Decided to hide in the kitchen, quietly locking the door behind me. I tried to breathe slowly, telling myself it might be someone playing a prank. The house felt colder now, and the lights flickered for a second. Then, I heard footsteps on the porch outside, slow and deliberate. I peeked through the kitchen window. The man was still there, just standing, looking at the front door. I grabbed a knife from the drawer and waited, frozen in fear. After what felt like an hour, the footsteps faded away, and the porch went silent. I stayed in the kitchen until my parents came home, too scared to move. The next day, the police came by. They said a man had been spotted in the neighborhood, knocking on doors, trying to get inside. He was never caught. Sometimes, when I'm alone in the house and the wind taps on the windows, I still think about that face watching me just outside the glass. I never liked the basement in my parents' house. It was old and cold, with those bare concrete walls that smelled like damp and mildew. The kind of smell that gets into your clothes and won't come out. We never used the basement much, just for storing old boxes and the holiday decorations we only pulled out once a year. One weekend, my parents had to go out of town for a couple of days, so I was home alone. I didn't mind at first. I thought it'd be nice to have the whole place to myself. I spent most of the day playing video games and watching movies. Around 7 p.m., I went to grab a bottle of water from the kitchen. The lights flickered a little, like the house was settling, or maybe the storm outside was messing with the power. It was just a quick flicker, nothing big, but it made the house feel darker somehow. That's when I heard the noise. It was coming from downstairs, the basement, like something scraping softly against the floor. I froze, trying to tell myself it was nothing, maybe a mouse or a branch hitting the window. The basement door is at the end of a narrow hallway, just past the kitchen. It's a heavy wooden door with an old brass knob. I hadn't planned on going down there, but the noise kept happening, slow and rhythmic, like someone dragging their nails across the concrete. My heart started beating faster. I wanted to ignore it, but curiosity won. I grabbed my phone and walked down the hall toward the basement door. I stopped right in front of it and listened. The noise had stopped. I thought maybe I was imagining things. Then, a cold draft hit my face. The basement door was slightly open, just a crack. It hadn't been before. I don't know why I pushed it open more. Maybe I wanted to see if someone was down there, or maybe I wanted to prove to myself that I wasn't scared. The basement stairs creaked as I stepped down. It was darker down there than I expected, even with the little bulb hanging from the ceiling. The bulb flickered above me, barely lighting the space. I called out, "Hello?" But only my voice echoed back. I moved slowly, my phone flashlight on. Boxes were stacked along the walls, and the air smelled musty, like old paper and dust. Then, I heard it again. A soft scraping, but closer this time, like fingernails on the floor. I shined my light toward the back corner of the basement. The light caught something, a shadow, or maybe a person crouching behind a stack of boxes. I couldn't tell. I called out again, louder. "Who's there?" No answer. Suddenly, the basement door slammed shut upstairs with a loud bang. My heart jumped into my throat. I ran up the stairs, fumbling to open the door. It was stuck. I yanked it hard, and it swung open just enough for me to squeeze through. I locked the door behind me and ran to the kitchen, grabbing the biggest knife I could find. I wanted to call the police, but the phone line was dead. The storm had knocked it out, they said later. I sat in the living room, knife in my hand, listening. The house was silent except for the rain tapping on the windows. Then I heard it. Slow, deliberate footsteps coming from the basement door. Heavy footsteps moving up the stairs. My breath caught. I hugged the knife tight, waiting. The footsteps stopped right at the top of the stairs. I didn't dare look. Minutes passed. The house was quiet again. I called my parents and told them everything. Once their phone worked again, they came home early and called the police. The officers searched the basement but found no one. No footprints, no sign of anyone being inside. But the basement door was still slightly scratched, like someone had tried to claw their way out. I still get chills thinking about that night. Sometimes when I'm home alone, I hear scraping noises in the basement, and sometimes the door is just a little bit open. I never thought much about the hallway outside my bedroom. It was just a plain, narrow stretch with white walls and a few family photos hanging crookedly. But after what happened, I can't look at it the same way. It was a regular weekday night. My parents were both working late, so I was home alone for the first time in a long while. I'd finished all my homework and was about to get ready for bed around 10:30 p.m. The house was quiet except for the soft hum of the refrigerator and the faint tick of the old clock in the living room. I was brushing my teeth in the bathroom, at the end of the hallway, when I caught a movement from the corner of my eye. I froze and turned slowly toward the hallway. For a moment, I thought I saw a shadow flicker past the photos on the wall. The hallway felt colder than usual. I could smell something faint, like wet concrete mixed with dust. The kind of smell that sticks to your shoes when you walk into an old basement. It didn't belong in our house. I stepped out of the bathroom, gripping the sink edge with one hand and a towel in the other. The hallway was empty, the dim light from the hallway lamp casting long shadows. Still, my skin prickled. I started walking toward my room, but then I heard it. A soft dragging sound, like something heavy being pulled slowly across the floor. I stopped and listened. The sound came again, slow, deliberate, almost rhythmic. It wasn't quite footsteps, but something close. I walked toward the living room, wanting to check if the front door was locked. As I passed the staircase, I saw the front door's small window and I froze. There was a figure standing just outside, framed by the dim streetlight. The shape was tall and still, with no face visible. My heart pounded, so loud I thought it might burst out of my chest. I blinked, and the figure was gone. I rushed to the door and checked the lock. It was bolted tight. I tried calling my parents, but no answer. Then, I heard the dragging sound again, this time behind me. I spun around. The hallway was empty. My skin was cold and clammy. I decided to stay in the living room with the lights on. After a while, I thought I heard whispering coming from the hallway. Soft, almost like someone talking to themselves, but I couldn't make out any words. I grabbed a flashlight and slowly crept down the hallway toward my bedroom. The air felt heavier with every step, and the shadows seemed to grow longer, darker. Halfway down, the light flickered, and for a brief second, I saw a shadow standing at the far end of the hallway. It didn't move, just watched me. I swallowed hard and kept walking, not wanting to look away. When I reached my door, I quickly locked it and leaned against it, my heart racing. I sat on the floor and tried to calm down, telling myself it was just my imagination, maybe a trick of the light or a reflection. But then I heard it again, a faint breathing coming from the other side of the door. Slow, shallow breaths. I pressed my ear against the door, holding my breath. The breathing stopped. Then, a soft scratching sound, like nails tapping on wood, began along the bottom of the door. I don't know how long I stayed there, frozen and listening. Eventually, the sound stopped. I stayed awake all night, flashlight by my side. When morning came, everything looked normal. The hallway bright with sunlight, no shadows, no sounds. But I still felt it, that cold presence, waiting just beyond the door. Even now, I don't walk down that hallway at night without looking over my shoulder. Sometimes, when the house is silent, I swear I hear that dragging sound again, and I can't shake the feeling that whatever was there that night, it's still watching. I worked the night shift at an office building downtown. It was mostly empty after 9 p.m., with just a handful of cleaning staff and a few late workers like me. The building was old, with those creaky elevators and dim fluorescent lights that buzzed softly all night. One night, after finishing my tasks on the 12th floor, I decided to take the elevator down to the lobby. The stairwells were dark and felt too isolated, and I was eager to get home and sleep. The elevator doors opened, and I stepped inside. I pressed the button for the lobby. Floor 1. The doors closed slowly behind me, the soft hum of the cables, beginning to move the elevator downward. It was quiet, just the faint sound of the motor and the distant city noises filtering in from the street below. Suddenly, the elevator jolted to a stop between floors. The lights flickered once, then stayed, steady, but the buttons inside the panel went dark. No floor numbers lit up, no emergency lights, just complete silence, except for the soft buzzing. I pressed the emergency button repeatedly, but nothing happened. No voice, no signal, just dead silence. The air inside felt heavy, thick, like the elevator had suddenly become a small box, trapping me inside. I tried to stay calm and reached for my phone, but there was no signal. That's when I noticed something else. There was a shadow moving in the corner of the elevator. Not on the walls or floor, but a dark shape that seemed to hover just behind me. I spun around quickly, but the elevator was empty. The shadow disappeared. I told myself it was a trick of the flickering light. Trying to ignore it, I leaned against the wall, waiting for help or for the elevator to start moving again. After a few minutes, I heard soft footsteps, slow and deliberate, coming from the hallway outside the elevator. I pressed my ear against the closed doors, listening. The footsteps stopped. Then, a faint tapping sound, like someone knocking gently on metal. I backed away from the door, heart pounding. Then the footsteps returned, this time walking away slowly, fading into silence. I was frozen in place, unsure what to do. Suddenly, the elevator jolted again and started moving down, slowly at first, then faster. The lights came back on fully, and the buttons lit up again. I exhaled deeply, relieved. When the elevator doors opened on the lobby, the security guard was standing there, looking confused. He said the elevator had been stuck for hours earlier that night, but he thought the problem was fixed. I told him about the shadow and the footsteps, but he just smiled nervously and said, "Old buildings make people imagine things." I left quickly and never stayed late in that building again. But sometimes, when I'm in elevators at night, I swear I see that shadow just out of the corner of my eye, and I can still hear those slow footsteps fading away into silence. I never thought much about the front door. It was just a simple wooden door with a deadbolt and a peephole. We lived in a quiet suburban neighborhood, and my parents always said it was safe to leave the door unlocked if I was home alone during the day. But that night changed everything. My parents went out for dinner with friends, leaving me home alone. I was about 16 and felt pretty grown up being by myself. I watched TV, ate some snacks, and didn't think much about the night ahead. Around 11 p.m., I was getting ready to go to bed. The house was silent except for the soft sound of the air conditioner humming. I brushed my teeth and started shutting off the lights one by one. Then, I heard it. A soft creak coming from the front door. I froze. It was the kind of noise a door makes when it's pushed slowly open. My heart beat faster. I told myself it was nothing, maybe the wind or the house settling, but then I heard it again. This time, the slow creak was followed by a faint scraping sound, like a key sliding into a lock. I held my breath and listened carefully. The scraping stopped. Then, silence. I wanted to call my parents, but my phone was in my room and I was too scared to move. I grabbed the biggest flashlight I could find in the kitchen and tiptoed down the hallway toward the front door. The hallway smelled faintly of old wood and dust. It was colder than usual, like the warmth of the house was being sucked away. I reached the door and shined my flashlight through the peephole. Nothing. No one outside. I tried the door handle. It was locked tight. Still, the sounds had been real. Backed away slowly and heard a whisper. I swear I heard a voice. Soft, almost like someone saying my name. I spun around, shining the light everywhere. The house was empty. I locked all the doors and windows again, even though they were already locked. I stayed up the rest of the night with the flashlight in my hand. In the early morning, my parents came home. I told them what happened, but they just smiled and said it was probably just the wind. I wanted to believe them. But sometimes, when I'm alone late at night, I hear the creak again, and the whisper calling my name.